Brewing mangpa soup is a craft, and choosing the right mangpa is no trivial matter. That's why, after much deliberation, I selected Miaodo, because she looks like my sister. Sliding a transfer order into Yingshu's hand, I batted my eyelashes playfully. "Sign it, please? Pretty please?" Yingshu gave me a helpless look. Just as he was about to seal Miaodo's fate with his signature, someone stormed in like a whirlwind. "My king, The intruder stopped short when he saw me, then immediately turned on his heels at lightning speed. He snapped back, outraged. What happened to the office romance ban? Yingshu, calm and unshaken as a mountain, replied, "It's your demon lord here who unilaterally violates all my rules." With an air of innocence, he added, "But I successfully resisted her advances." That's when In Sun, his black wuchang, turned his seething gaze to me, as though I had sullied their noble king's moral purity. Casually, I pulled my exposed leg back under my robe and tugged my sliding neckline into place. Sliding off Yingshu's desk, I stood upright. I became virtuous, modest, and chaste. Yingshu graciously accepted the sentiment and escorted him out. Poor Yin Longling would surely have no recollection of why he came. His blank state of mind could easily last for at least 3 days. Then he handed me the signed transfer order and gestured to his desk. "Lie back down, just as you were." This just goes to show that some people may seem like innocent little rabbits on the outside, but they're wolves through and through on the inside. I know this better than anyone. Among all the people who have ever dealt with Yingshu, I've known him the longest, fallen the hardest. What can I say? I'm in love with him. Father always said I was his pride and joy, his fierce little wildcat who took after him. The gown in question was custom-made for my upcoming wedding. Its crowning jewel, a flowing robe adorned with phoenix embroidery and crimson tassels, had taken 2 months to complete. During those 2 months, I had to wake up early every day and stand still as a statue while the tailors measured me. No moving, no jumping, no flipping, and most importantly, no wielding my weapons. It was a monotonous waste of life. Being the clever demoness that I am, I used my ice magic to create a lifelike replica of myself and snuck off to enjoy my freedom while the tailor worked. When Dad arrived, he squatted next to me, both of us watching the proceedings. Staring at the brilliant red wedding robe, his sentimental side emerged. "It's so beautiful." I nodded. "Beautiful, yes. Comfortable? Not so much." Father began to fantasize. My eldest daughter's wedding must be the grandest spectacle in all 6 realms. Unmatched in history, both before and after. When the day comes, I'll walk you down the aisle myself. You'll have to walk slowly, though. Think of your poor old father's legs. And don't forget your sister. She'll be your bridesmaid. I nodded absent-mindedly, my mind wandering to which ocean I'd plunder for seafood later. The tailor's voice shattered my reverie. "Where's the groom? His outfit should match yours. He'll need a fitting." Father said confidently, "The groom isn't here yet." I added, The tailor's expression became a kaleidoscope of disbelief. "Then why are you two making such a fuss about a wedding? What nonsense is this?" He promptly turned to leave. Father stopped him with a surety that left no room for doubt. "The groom will appear soon enough." I nodded again. The tailor bolted out the door at breakneck speed. He must think we're both insane. But he's wrong. The groom can and will appear because the celestial and demonic realms are arranging this marriage. The heavenly emperor himself broached the subject, following Ghost King Lu Zhan's treachery in harboring 1,000,000 ghost soldiers and rebelling against the heavens. Unable to handle the rebellion alone, the heavens sought an alliance with the demon realm. The heavenly emperor's flowery speech boiled down to one simple point: I could pick any of his numerous sons to marry. I remember that day was particularly lovely. Dressed in full ceremonial regalia, I stood at the southern heavenly gate. Clouds billowed, mist swirled, and the air was thick with ethereal energy. The celestial beings who came to greet me floated effortlessly, their snow-white robes fluttering in the breeze, giving them an otherworldly elegance. In stark contrast, I and my demon entourage were clad in heavy black and red formal attire, exuding a commanding and somber aura. Leading the Celestials was an old man with a star on his forehead. He looked upright and self-assured, with a haughty air. I knew well the disdain the Celestials harbored toward us demons. To them, we were crude, violent, and uncivilized savages. But now, forced to seek our aid, they were clearly swallowing their pride, and it was visibly painful for them. After the formalities, the old man, whom I recognized as Tai-Bai Jinxing, spoke. His Majesty has been waiting in the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Please, Your Highness, allow me to escort you there. With that, he moved to take me into the air. A show-off. He probably wanted to flaunt his ability to fly. I promptly grabbed him midair and yanked him back down. Smiling, I said, "Why the rush? This is my first visit to the celestial realm. A quick glance tells me your heavenly palace is quite the sight. Why don't we ground ourselves and take a stroll? You can give me a proper tour." "Ah, that might not be appropriate. His Majesty is waiting," he stammered. I replied, "Well, let him wait a little longer." A little power play never hurt anyone. Did they think demons wouldn't give as good as we got? Tai-Bai had no choice but to comply, reluctantly leading me through the palace grounds. We passed through towering pavilions, secluded gardens, and flowing bridges over clear streams. Wait, a secluded garden? I turned back. In the garden stood a lush tree, and under it, two figures, one dressed in purple, the other in green. Both were men. With the eyes of 100 demons and 100 celestials watching, the man in purple said to the one in green, "Ingshu, for thousands of years, we've been inseparable. Our bond runs so deep. Are you truly ending it here today?" Before the green-robed man, Ingshu, could respond, Tai-Bai, standing next to me, let out a strangled cry. His hand trembled as though he had a seizure, and he pointed at Ingshu. "Second Prince. PPP Prince." His screech echoed across the silent heavens, reverberating endlessly. The awkwardness was palpable. How thrilling! The two figures under the tree finally noticed the crowd. The man in purple, wearing a golden mask that obscured his face, had a voice deep and resonant, like the strum of an ancient lute. He ignored everyone around him, gazing only at Ingshu. With a soft chuckle, he said, "Even if our bones break, the sinews still bind us. You may want to sever this, but it's impossible." With that, he dissolved into purple smoke and disappeared before anyone could react. Ingshu remained where he was, clad in his rain-soaked green robes. Bathed in the misty celestial light, he stood tall and composed, meeting the livid Tai-Bai's gaze with unruffled calm. For the first time, I saw him clearly, and I had to admit he was stunning. His porcelain white skin, brows like emerald feathers, and eyes deep as pools of ink carried a gentle, serene warmth. When his gaze brushed past you, it felt like a sliver of moonlight caressing your face. I heard Tai-Bai address him as Your Highness, which meant he was one of the Celestial Emperor's sons. If I hadn't witnessed his little scene with the purple-robed man, I would have undoubtedly fallen for him, charmed by his ethereal grace. What a pity. I suddenly felt like my trip to the celestial realm had been a waste. My enthusiasm dampened. I followed the formalities in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, meeting the Celestial Emperor with little interest. At last, we arrived at the final, crucial moment. The Celestial Emperor held his breath. The demon elders behind me held their breaths. All eyes discreetly glanced in my direction. Dragging my cumbersome ceremonial gown, I walked back and forth in front of a line of celestial princes. Each of them looked humiliated, as though their pride had never suffered such a blow in their lives, being appraised like livestock by a demon princess, no less. Their resentment was palpable, and I wouldn't have been surprised if any of them opted for self-immolation out of sheer indignation. Only Ingshu, standing at the end of the line, met my gaze with the same gentle, steady look, unflinching, unwavering. It was strange. Despite his slim and delicate frame, his gaze made you feel as if you were being cherished, as if you owed him something. It made you reflexively lower your head in shame, apologizing for wrongs you hadn't yet committed. I fell victim to that gaze often after we got together. But that's a story for another time. At that moment, I strode past Shu without hesitation, tapping my fan against my palm as I went. Finally, I pointed to the 12th prince, Shiyu.
Why?
Because Shiyu's features bore a striking resemblance to Shu's. With a grand wave of my hand, I declared my choice and left the palace, heading home to wait for my new husband to move into the demon realm. My father said that the Celestials' physiques were frail and couldn't take much, and advised me to wait for their young prince to arrive without being too arrogant. He also told Sun to dig through my collection of skulls by my bedside and throw them out. The little skulls had become my lifeline, keeping me company through many sleepless nights. There was no better pillow, and so I hugged my little skull tightly, curling into the corner of the room to hide. Sun, my little demon dragon raised from when I found him as a child, didn't understand boundaries. He tugged at the skull's eye sockets and tugged at me. Come on, let go. If you keep this up, your little pretty boy from the celestial realm will be scared stiff when he sees this. I refused. I've also got a few ferocious beast skulls in my wardrobe. If he doesn't have the guts to deal with this, then he's definitely not worthy of being my brave and mighty demon realm princess's husband. Just then, a pale, delicate hand landed on the skull. Sun and I both looked up to seeing Shu, dressed in a simple white feathered cloak, basking in the sunlight like a deity, radiating a divine glow. He looked at me with gentle eyes and said, "What the princess says is right." I kept my face emotionless, though internally, I was thinking, wow. Sun, who had no filter, blurted out, "Wow, what a perfect pretty boy." Clearly, Sun and Meowdo were two peas in a pod. Both of them completely lost for words when faced with beauty, only able to comment on someone's fair skin. I shook off my gown and got out of bed, glancing at the celestial visitors outside the hall who had come to escort the bride. They were all stiff and awkward, looking like monks walking into a den of demons. I pulled Shu aside and quietly asked, "What are you doing here?" He smiled brightly and replied softly, "I have nowhere else to go. Princess, would you consider taking me in?" His calm words helped me piece together the situation. Apparently, after Tai-Bai Jinxing had caught him and the purple-robed man in a secret meeting, the Celestial Emperor found out and couldn't cover it up. To avoid a confrontation in front of me, the Emperor had locked Shu in the Celestial prison after the banquet, demanding to know the identity of the other person. Shu refused to speak. At the same time, Shiyu, whom I had chosen earlier, had thrown a fit at home, refusing to come. He was the youngest and most pampered son of the Celestial Empress, who, after cursing me 100 times, had taken matters into her own hands. She secretly swapped Shu in place of Shiyu and sent him to me. Did she think I was blind? I scoffed. That impulsive, clueless woman. What did she think she was doing, trying to force a celestial demon marriage like it was some joke? I bet the Celestial Emperor was probably furious right now. Shu, too, said, "A celestial demon marriage is no trivial matter. I know the princess prefers my 12th brother. If you're upset about the Empress's deception and this troublesome situation for the demon realm, please don't worry about me. You can do whatever you wish." I asked, "And what will you do?" It was clear that he wasn't favored in the celestial realm. While many of the Celestials were adorned in luxurious clothing, Tai-Bai, a senior Celestial, wore the ceremonial white robes, while Shu wore humble, simple green robes with no adornments. He had unusual tastes, and among the stubborn and conservative Celestials, he was already at odds with many of them. If I didn't take him in, and the demon realm rejected him, would he have any place in the celestial realm? Shu seemed to understand my hesitation and said, "I'm not ashamed of my origins. My mother came from humble beginnings, and my father, the Emperor, took her as his least favored concubine. I, too, am unremarkable, but even a mayfly has its survival methods. As for me, there's no need to worry about me, princess. I don't want you to suffer the consequences of this. Survive." To think that such a wonderful person would describe his situation as survival. My kind heart couldn't bear it. Looking at his face, I said sincerely, "Actually, I'm not losing anything." This troublesome matter could be easily solved with a simple acknowledgement of a mistake. I explained to my father that I had misspoken in the Celestial Palace, that I had intended to choose the second prince, Ingshu, but mistakenly said the 12th prince. At first, my father was a bit doubtful. When Ingshu appeared and greeted him, my father was convinced. It makes sense. My daughter, of course, is the type to fall for looks. I clearly saw the celestial visitors sigh in relief before leaving Ingshu behind. Ingshu, upon seeing my room filled with skull shelves, bat-like ornaments, and other oddities, showed no surprise. He simply bowed to me with composure and said, "I apologize for causing the princess any inconvenience." I waved my hand.
No.
If anyone should be apologizing, it's me. If I hadn't dragged Tai-Bai around to tour the palace, you wouldn't be in this situation. In-sun later commented that he had never seen a couple so polite. As soon as they met, they were apologizing to each other. You didn't immediately jump on him and have your fun. Instead, you maintained your composure. "Princess, I think you've grown." I sighed and said, "You don't understand. He doesn't like me." In-sun waved his hand. "That's impossible. You've got the looks. I'm sure anyone would be swayed by you." I replied, "He doesn't like women." In-sun froze for a moment, then realizing, took a step back and hugged himself. Afterward, he comforted me. "Don't lose hope. Even if he doesn't have feelings for you, you can always cuddle up to him and keep warm." I smiled kindly and kicked him across the room. After Ingshu came to my demon palace, I rarely saw him. I always felt that beneath the celestial aura surrounding him, he was a bookish, scholarly man who was too refined for people like us. His daily life was filled with quiet tea drinking by the pine trees, the occasional sound of a chess piece clicking, or the soft tinkling of a lantern's flame. He was too gentle to mix with the likes of us rough demons. Since he had suffered some emotional setbacks, I wanted to make up for him in material ways. So, I had In-sun move chessboards and lanterns into his courtyard every day, with flowers and pines also included. Business isn't always about profit. Sometimes it's about kindness. I was truly a kind and righteous friend to him. Then my younger sister, Yushi, returned from her studies and insisted on meeting her new brother-in-law. Despite my protests, she dragged me proudly and confidently into Ingshu's room. Both of us were shocked. The small courtyard wasn't large, but it was elegantly arranged. In my demon tribe, where we love to decorate with animal parts and other crude decorations, to have such a refined space meant In-sun must have put in a lot of effort. Suddenly, I remembered that he had never put this much thought into serving me. But that wasn't the point. The point was that outside by a small bridge and a flowing stream, there was a long beam of wood with all sorts of tools like saws and hammers by its side. A handsome man, sleeves rolled up, stood next to the beam, focused on planing a piece of wood. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The floor was littered with sawdust. What was going on here? Wasn't this supposed to be a peaceful scene of tea drinking and chess playing? Where were the flowers? Oh, there were flowers too. By a fake mountain there was a snowman, or was it a snow demon or a snow beast or a snow monster? It was hard to tell. It was a strange figure, standing stubbornly in a peculiar pose, wearing a hat made of green leaves and a bunch of flowers pinned to its side, with black chess pieces for eyes. Seeing that I was intently staring at the snowman, Ingshu gently put down his tools and said, "I made this snowman for you, princess. Does it look like you?" It shocked my whole family. "That's too kind," my sister said. My sister, when she turns into her real form, looks much uglier than this. Ingshu smiled gently upon hearing this. My sister, wide-eyed, pulled me aside and said, "Wow, how good-looking is your brother-in-law? If they let such a handsome man accompany them to the heavenly realm, he must be something extraordinary. Where is he? Let me meet him." I held her back and forced her to face Ingshu. Yushi, with her round baby face, was confused at first, then suddenly attempted to throw herself at Shu. He's so genuine and unpretentious. I like him. Sister, I want this husband of yours. I said, sure. Yushi happily approached and tried to take Shu away. Come on, let's go. I'll show you my collection of bat skins and rat skins. I have even more than my sister does. She said that all her treasures are mine to take when the time comes. She rambled on, but Shu interrupted her, looking back at me. With a gentle smile, he said, You too, don't you want to fight for me? I pulled him aside. You have to understand, my sister is like this. She's a passionate person, and once she's interested in something, she's all in for a short while. After that, she'll be over it. She's just a child. She doesn't really know what true affection is. If you oppose her, she'll actually become upset with you. So just go along with it, and when the time comes, I'll thank you properly. He said, She doesn't understand, but I do. I already have someone I like. I don't like her, so I can't be so casual with her. I know. My heart twisted. I knew exactly who he was referring to, the purple-robed immortal. What else didn't I know? You know? He looked at me in surprise, his eyes lighting up with joy. Then you. At this moment, my sister interrupted, shouting, Are you done talking? The monster hunting event is starting. Are we going or not? She then grabbed Shu's hand. Shu looked back at me. I shrugged at him. See? Just like I said, her enthusiasm only lasts for a short time. She was just about to pounce on you. Shu suddenly grabbed my hand. Are we going? My first reaction was to pull my hand away, but then I forced a dry laugh to cover my awkwardness. How could I act like this? I couldn't lose face in front of my father. I immediately grabbed his hand back firmly. Let's go. I looked back and saw In-sun standing there, smoking with anger. He crossed his arms and glared at me. You're a woman of no integrity. You promised to pair her up with me. I slapped my forehead. I had forgotten about that. In-sun had grown up alongside Yushi, and it was no surprise that he had feelings for her. When Yushi left to study, it wasn't my father who was upset. It was In-sun. I still remembered the day he sent her off. He was more like a father than my own. He cried as he held her, reminding her to take care of herself, not to drink cold water, not to skip meals, and not to talk to strange men. In the end, I had to drag him back and promise that when she came back, I would help him pursue her. But now, with Shu here, I had completely forgotten about that promise. I looked at In-sun apologetically, feeling a bit guilty, and offered him my free hand. Wanna hold this one? Before he could reply, Shu took my hand as well. Now we were both holding hands, facing each other. I glanced at the half-finished woodwork in the courtyard and worried that he might suddenly want to dance in circles like a bear. Thankfully, he didn't. He simply looked down at me and said, Your hands are cold. Let me warm them for you. On the outside, I kept calm, but inside, I was overjoyed. No man had ever spoken to me like this before, not one. They all feared me, especially with the big steel fork I always carried around, saying, Princess, you're so strong and mighty. I was surrounded by Shu's warm gaze, and I thought to myself, let me die. I don't care who he likes, I'll pursue him. Meanwhile, Yushi, seeing Shu let go of her, was happily gripping my hand. She didn't think much of it, completely distracted, looking for weapons to go hunt monsters. In-sun, witnessing this, enthusiastically ran over to Yushi. Is your hand cold? Let me warm it up for you. Yushi threw a fireball at him, turning his white fur into gray ash. In-sun was finally quiet. Chigon Gorge, as its name implies, is a canyon filled with dense jungles and thick mist, making it easy to enter but hard to exit. It's long been a place for my people in the demon world to train and hunt monsters. Silver Sun led the way, with Yushi following closely behind him. Shu and I walked side by side at the back. As we walked, I patted his hand and said, Don't be scared. Once we're in, there's no turning back. Whether we make it out alive depends on luck, okay? Shu gave a subtle nod. I grinned. Yes, us demons were naturally drawn to excitement. I added, I'll protect you. Just as I said that, a monster suddenly sprang out from the withered grass. What a perfect opportunity for a heroic rescue. I was about to leap forward with a loud battle cry when I saw Ingshu lightly raise his hand. The monster was instantly reduced to rubble in front of me. Under our collective gaze, Ingshu smiled shyly. Was that too much? I'll be more careful next time. Yushi stepped forward solemnly. Sorry, big brother. When I said I liked you earlier, it was just a childish slip. You're still my sisters. I wish you both happiness. A shared glance confirmed that big brother was someone she could never have. It took me a while to regain my voice. That was just a coincidence. It was probably just a low-level monster. Stay behind me later, so you don't get snatched by any stronger beasts. Ingshu smiled, as the princess says. Yushi couldn't stand it and turned to expose me. Brother, don't listen to her. Other than the one time we suppressed a Cheongchi, most of the monsters here are low-level. A quick battle will do. It's not often we get such good luck to meet a great beast. The most important thing is that the path is difficult, and the depths of the gorge lead to the underworld prison. Stick with us, or if you lose your way, you'll never get out unless you're a demon from the demon realm. I felt Ingshu's hand tighten around mine. So, this is the way to the underworld. Yes, otherwise, why would your heavenly clan want to ally with us? My younger sister spoke bluntly, making Ingshu lower his head. I was about to remind her when a monstrous roar echoed through the air. Big beast. Big beast. Yushi jumped up in excitement. Don't fight me for it, it's mine. In the blink of an eye, she was several yards away, with Silver Sun following without a word. I slowed my pace, watching them disappear into the mist, then turned to Ingshu to explain. That brat likes my sister. Give him a chance. Ingshu nodded, pushing aside some obstructing branches. As I watched his slender back, a sudden realization hit me. It was just the two of us now. I felt an unexpected tension. Looking for something to say, I asked, Ingshu, what were you doing in the courtyard earlier, cutting wood? He turned around. It's a gift for you. I immediately thought of the snowman he made in my likeness and took a step back. No, I'm not really into wooden sculptures. He smiled. It's a bed for you. I asked again. What did you say? A bed. He seemed completely unbothered, explaining calmly. Last time I saw your skeletons filling up your bed, I figured you must be uncomfortable, so I decided to get you a bigger one. I dryly responded. You seem to know a lot. I continued. Did you know that in our demon realm, a bed is a symbol of intimacy? Only married couples exchange them. He paused for a moment, then replied, I see. He added, in that case, I'll still give it to you. At that moment, fireworks seemed to explode in my mind. If this kept going, I might misunderstand him as liking me too. Before I could tell him to stop acting so charming, I suddenly felt a chill. The large steel fork in my hand shot forward without mercy, piercing a savage wolf's belly. Moments later, I wiped the blood from the fork. The wolf had almost bitten Ingshu's throat from behind. Ingshu's face turned pale. After he realized what happened, he bowed to me. The beauty that he was, he still said, Thank you, princess, for saving me today. The kindness of a beautiful woman is hard to repay, but I will surely return the favor in the future. I couldn't help but exclaim, Oh! I hadn't expected him to be this kind of second prince from the heavenly realm. I hesitated for a moment before stepping forward and hugging him. Why wait until the future? We can hug now. My body pressed against his, almost like embracing a warm jade. Though I murmured my apologies, the sensation was surprisingly comfortable. It seemed that Ingshu was well suited for being a human heating pad. My mind was racing, and I whispered near his ear, I've never hugged a stranger before. This is my first time. Are you touched? Ingshu politely raised his hand high, not daring to touch my waist, keeping a respectful distance as far as possible. I can't move. I thought to myself, How could he not be moved? Was I too demure? Maybe he preferred someone more passionate. So, I stood on my tiptoes and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. How do you feel now? His eyes widened in surprise, his face flushing bright red. Innocently, he stammered, "Pea Princess." I pushed him against a tree. "Say my name." He smiled, and in a low voice, he called out, "You Tuesday." He looked embarrassed and said, "You're a lady. How can you do this? I don't have any impure intentions toward you." I sighed dramatically. "Then what should I do? I only have impure thoughts about you." "'Tis then fine," he stammered. "If that's the case from now on, you can only have such thoughts for me." I replied, "As long as you cut ties with that other guy, we have a deal." He was genuinely shocked. "What other guy?" I bit my lip and looked at him. He was playing dumb now, and I had no way out. His expression shifted to realization, and he helplessly chuckled. "You too, I don't like men." I looked sorrowful. "So that person in purple was a woman?" He hesitated for a moment, then said, "That person is a relative of mine." A fleeting expression of worry passed over his face, but I was too absorbed in his next words to think further. "You know, the one I like is you." I shuddered in disbelief. "What? You like me? When? Am I really that amazing now?" At that moment, I felt like we had officially entered a relationship. Excited, I couldn't decide what to do next. I wanted to share something I loved with him. "Do you like catching turtles in the sea?" He smiled and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His eyes were so full of affection that it almost overwhelmed me. "As long as I'm with you, I'll like anything you do." Later, I asked him how his gaze could be so deep and full of feeling. "If you have time, teach me how to do that." He laughed softly. "I've never had good eyesight. I can't see clearly from a distance, so I always feel like there's a veil, making everything look misty and full of affection." I was thoroughly impressed. At that time, holding his hand as we walked through the rugged Qigong Gorge, the scenery was like a painting. Wherever Shu was, even hell felt like heaven. The young heart doesn't know love and hate, the most touching moment in life. But that was long ago. Now, as I watched the shadows of people moving in front of me, I kicked over a few empty wine jars and opened a new one, drinking it down in one gulp. Someone approached, calling out anxiously, "Your Majesty." I waved them away. I felt like I was drunk, or maybe just getting old. Why else would I be reminiscing about the past? Back then, Shu and I were close. I trusted everything he said, told him all the secrets of the demon realm, taught him how to awaken a Cheongqi, showed him the map that led to the underworld, and even told him that the steel fork in my hand was a weapon capable of killing gods and piercing hearts. I saw him open the path to the underworld, leading the ghost clan to slaughter my demon people. I saw him standing atop the massive Cheongqi, wielding my steel fork, which had transformed into a sharp sword, pointing towards the sun and moon. Wherever it passed, gods and ghosts alike trembled. He looked at me from across a sea of people, his eyes filled with struggle and pain. "I'm sorry, you Tuesday. I have no way out." The man in purple stood beside him, removing his mask to reveal a face identical to Shu's. I watched as they merged into one. Lu Zhan was him, and he was Lu Zhan. The Ghost Clan's goal had always been to destroy the demons first, then the Heavenly Clan. Shu had schemed for years, all to avenge his mother. When the Heavenly Emperor was young, he encountered a ghostly woman and became involved with her. The Heavenly Empress, jealous, locked the woman away in the celestial prison. The woman gave birth to Shu there. He had the blood of the Ghost Clan, and from birth, he was despised, growing up with humiliation. For hundreds of years, he begged the Heavenly Clan to release his mother, but the Heavenly Emperor had forgotten about her, already distracted by countless other loves, even forgetting that he had a son. He was formally addressed as the Second Prince, but no one ever truly saw him. But what did that matter? The Heavenly Clan had wronged him, and now he had wronged me. Why should that be? I tossed and turned on the large bed, unable to sleep peacefully. My little skeletons rolled all over the floor, but I couldn't bring myself to pick them up. I just stared blankly out the window at the small bridge, flowing water, and the artificial mountain. This was the place where Shu had once lived. I forbade it from changing for 1,000 years. It's almost laughable. This very bed was a gift from him, and I couldn't bear to part with it. The only thing out of place in the room was the wedding gown that was propped up, its bright red fabric standing out. The skirt was a deeper shade than any other part, stained with my father's blood. That morning, when my father fell in battle, I was still trying on the gown, imagining myself as Shu's bride. But then the ghost clan attacked, surrounding my demon people. I only learned of the bad news in the middle of it all. I didn't have time to change, and by the time I arrived at the Chigon Gorge, all I could do was collect my father's body. He never saw me fully dressed in the wedding gown. He had promised to personally escort me to my wedding and told me to walk slowly, to take care of his aging legs. In the countless nights I've dreamed of him, he would always be there, without a trace of demon lord authority, his beard comically twitching as he said, "And your younger sister, she'll be your maid of honor." It wasn't until Sun appeared before me that I snapped out of my reverie, holding my aching temples as I looked up at him. He had grown so much over the years, tall, composed, and increasingly cold. He couldn't stand it when I drank, seizing the wine jar from my hands. "I knew I'd find you here. Your Majesty, who are you mourning for?" I silently accepted his anger. Ever since Yushi had died trying to save him, he had become like this, and honestly, what was the difference between him and me? He forced me to look him in the eyes. The Heavenly Emperor sent his younger brother. Do you want to meet him? 3 years ago, the old Heavenly Emperor had stepped down, leaving the mess to his eldest son and retreating to his grandmother's house. Though Shu had disappeared after the battle, the Heavenly Realm remained on edge, still fearing the Ghost Clan's possible return. Thus, they resurrected the idea of a celestial demon marriage. I never expected that they would send Shiyu. After 1,000 years, he hadn't changed much in appearance, but his aura was entirely different. He stood with his back to me in the center of the hall, his smoky blue clothes blending with the mist, his long, black hair flowing behind him. He didn't turn around when he heard my footsteps, but slightly tilted his head. Just that single expression caused a sharp pain in my chest. He was so similar. Despite his efforts to suppress his trembling, I stepped forward and grabbed his throat, looking down at him. "Who taught you to do this?" He didn't answer, instead gripping my hand. His long lashes trembled slightly as he softly called out, "You Tuesday." I recoiled in disgust and jerked my hand away. "I won't make things difficult for you. Go away." "I'm not going," he finally snapped, showing his childish side. "If I go back like this, my mother and elder brother will scold me to death." "You too, elder sister," he added, seeing my expression soften a little. "Please take me in. I beg you." For a moment, it was like the past. He smiled at me, just like before, whispering, "I have no home. Princess, will you take me in?" My heart softened. "What's in it for me if I keep you?" He bit his lip and stared at me, seemingly weighing something in his mind. After a moment, he made up his mind. "I can tell you a secret, one that only I know, and I heard it from my mother." "Go on." He hesitated. "Do you know the soul separation technique?" I raised my army, along with hundreds of thousands of soldiers from the Heavenly Realm, to fight the Ghost Clan at Chigon Gorge. Amid the chaos, I transformed into a ghostly figure and entered the Netherworld. The 19th level of Hell, the Infernal Abyss, is said to be a place where the punishments of the first 18 levels combine. I prepared myself for a fierce battle with evil spirits, but after walking for a long time, I found nothing but an eerie silence. There were no ghosts to be seen, no terrifying presence, just the endless sight of withered bones, some from adults, others from children. The red spider lilies had rooted and blossomed from the cracks in the bones. Shu had once told me that the Ghost Clan possessed a secret technique to strip a person's soul inch by inch while keeping their body alive, turning them into an invincible weapon. I recalled the scene wherein Shu had shattered a beast with a single blow. I moved forward, and soon, I heard the sound of flowing water. The scenery before me was strikingly familiar, an elegant courtyard in the Demon Palace. There, a figure in plain clothing stood, sleeves rolled up, focused on sawing wood. I took a few more steps. I knew it was an illusion, but I couldn't resist. Beside him stood a woman in a black and red dress, with fiery red lips. She watched with interest, and after a while, handed him a saw and then a ruler, busily helping. I never realized how lecherous my gaze could be. Shu, can this headboard be carved with flowers? Could you carve a peony, one full of prosperity? This awful taste in aesthetics, I didn't want to admit it, but that was once me. To my surprise, Shu nodded, tolerating my awful taste. I saw myself smile happily, but the smile twisted, becoming grotesque, as I raised an axe and mercilessly brought it down onto Shu's shoulder. Shu turned in pain, blood pouring from the wound, yet the version of me in the illusion didn't stop. Again and again, I struck him with the axe until he, defenseless, was reduced to a skeleton. The blood spread across the ground. The little courtyard suddenly changed, and two children, holding hands, ran frantically. Behind them, a woman with disheveled hair covered half her face chased after them. Suddenly, the girl tripped and fell to the ground, crying and rubbing her knee, trembling. "Big brother, I can't run anymore." In the blink of an eye, the woman caught up, ignoring the boy's attempts to stop her, dragging the girl by her collar. "Mother, stop," the boy pleaded, kneeling. "Please let her go. She's too young." "You don't understand," the woman slapped him aside. "It's because she's young that she must obey. Do you know who she is? Taotai, the Demon King's precious jewel. If I control her, it's like controlling the entire demon race." Her sharp, clawed fingers closed around the girl's forehead, attempting to strip her soul away, laughing wickedly, her eyes gleaming. The boy, somehow finding strength, hurled himself at the woman, his small body shaking like a leaf, trembling as he said, "I'll take her place. I'll take her place." He transformed, revealing his true form as a Qilin with flaming hooves, his limbs small and frail. "I'm more useful than her. I have hatred. Hatred for the Empress for humiliating you. Hatred for Father for abandoning us. I can be more useful to you than she ever could. Let her go, please." The woman laughed loudly. "You really are my good son," her laughter turning into tears. "I never wanted to do this. Don't hate me. My good child, please don't hate me." My vision blurred as tears filled my eyes. It came back to me. The first time I saw Shu wasn't in the Heavenly Palace. I had seen him long before, at Qigong Gorge. He was the boy who had given me the red flowers. When I was little, I was mischievous and often snuck into the Qigong Gorge to play. At the bottom of the valley, there was an entrance sealed by my father's magic. That day, I met a boy with horns on his head. "Big brother, what is this flower? It's so pretty." I wanted it. Through the transparent barrier, I gazed at the boy. He said, "Manjasaka." I picked it in hell. "What's hell? Are there a lot of flowers there? Can you take me to play?" "No." The boy shook his head. "It's too scary. You shouldn't come." "How stingy. Then come out and play with me. I have lots of dried bats." I can't get through." I smiled mischievously, muttered an incantation, and easily broke the barrier to release him. "See? I'm awesome. Don't tell anyone." I figured it out from my father's mumblings in his sleep. The boy looked at me in admiration and handed me a bouquet of Manjasaka. "For you." We often played together after that, until one day, the woman secretly followed the boy and emerged from behind. She was like an evil spirit from hell, ripping the boy's soul from his body. His cries echoed in my ears as his soul began to take form, twisted with the malevolent charm that a child should never have. "Mother," he didn't listen. But I did. She poked the unconscious girl. Will you let her go, mother? Why not take a piece of her soul and bind it to mine? One thrives, one suffers. In the future, she'll be a threat, and she'll forget everything that happened today, so she can't tell anyone. I don't care about how that woman stole my soul. After that day, I fell terribly ill, and my father forbade me from going to Chigon Gorge until I was older. I looked at the small body lying on the ground, motionless, seemingly dead. Though I knew he wouldn't die, he would grow up in pain, trapped in his mother's love and hatred, unable to escape, and eventually meet me. In the heavenly palace, when I aimed to make a powerful impression, Lu Zhan stood before that tree, watching me with Shu. Brother, you really do have a connection with her. Mother sent me to tell you that the time to defeat the demon race has come, he said, holding a soul shaped like Taotai. You decide what to do with it. It turned out that when he said there was no way out, he truly meant there was no way out. If only I had been more understanding, I would have realized that Shu's face, every day, was filled with sorrow that could never be washed away. He had tried so hard to make me happy. I understood the true horror of the nether hell. It makes the imprisoned ones repeatedly relive the most important memories of their past, only to die again and again at the hands of their closest and most loved ones. I saw a mother repeatedly peel away her son's soul, while the woman with a flamboyant smile lifted the axe time and again. He had been imprisoned here for 1,000 years, killed countless times by the two most important people in his life. The white bones I walked over all belonged to him. All of them. Finally, I reached the end. The black waves of the sea surged, crashing against the figure of a fragile person at the cliff's edge. In the midst of the raging wind, he cowered behind a reef. Shu, I'm late. He suddenly shuddered, unwilling to look up, instinctively trying to resist with his hand in front of him. His other hand was tightly clenched behind his back. He muttered, I beg you, don't come any closer. I know I've wronged you, but I have no way out. Once you enter the sea of suffering, there is no turning back. He said, at least let me see her one more time. There's something I need to return to her. I held him, feeling his fear, hesitation, and sorrow. I did my best, you Tuesday. Using the Qingfeng sword you gave me, I killed my mother, killed Lu Zhan, and trapped them here forever. I also stayed here forever. I can do no more. I beg you, let me go. I won't let you go, I said. Since you can't leave this hell, I'll stay with you. Thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, the body doesn't decay, the soul doesn't die, we'll be together forever. Never separated again. He trembled and pushed me away slightly, looking at me in disbelief. You too. It's me. He suddenly pushed me again, barely supporting himself, looking at me, speechless. After a while, he said, do you know where this place is? I nodded. I know. You know, and still dared to come in. Of course. What can you do to me? He lowered his head, unwilling to look at me. He sighed helplessly. You really haven't changed. But it's fine, he bitterly smiled. Now I can return this to you. He took his hand from behind his back, revealing a small, flickering soul of a gluttony demon in his palm. In this dark, shadowed place, it shone brightly. I tried not to choke up, stepping closer. I know everything. I came here to ask you one thing. Shu, look at me. I hate you. I leaned in, afraid I wouldn't be able to read his expression. Aren't I supposed to hate you? We spent so much time together. But did you ever tell me the truth? Yes, he said without hesitation. When I said I liked you, it was the truth. Then I don't want this damn soul. What I want is you. I held his hand. If you're leaving, then let's leave together. You too, I'm a soulless person now. I can't leave, he said. Forget it. There was a gust of wind behind me, and in the illusion I saw my father, my sister, In-sun, and a whole bunch of people rushing towards me, and for a moment I didn't know where to start scolding. Shu said, if you don't leave now, it'll really be too late. I held his hand, unwilling to let go. Do you know that your brother sent your 12th brother back to me? If you don't leave with me, then I'll belong to him." His gaze reflected mine and he said, "It's fine, as long as you're happy." How frustrating. After 1,000 years, I can still control him so easily. I waved my hand, sending the illusion of my father flying several meters away. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm the Demon Lord now, very powerful and with a bad temper. I think ordinary men aren't good enough for me. I'll go to heaven right now and ask your brother, the Emperor of Heaven, for a position as the king of the underworld for my husband, so he can walk all over the netherworld. Isn't that too much to ask? After 1,000 years, I finally saw him smile again. I said, "There's one more thing, very important." He looked up at me. "I have to go back and bring the bed over. Get used to it. From now on, you're the man of the Demon Lord. Don't forget to warm my bed." He smiled gently, his eyes curving. "All right." The demon and ghost clans ceased their hostilities. Sia took a bag of bat jerky, a specialty of the demon clan, and left. Een Sun blocked me at the door. Very coldly, "Hey, woman." I kicked at him. "Call me your majesty." "Your majesty," he readily complied. "I'm going to the underworld too." He stared at me seriously, never looking this earnest before. "I'm going to wait for her to come back. What if?" I couldn't argue with him. In truth, I didn't have much hope. When I agreed to Een Sun, it was just to give him something to hold on to. Many, many years passed. Many, many years. Fawn Link's light tinkled, and that familiar baby face appeared on the Book of Life and Death. Black Wuchang, accustomed to the cycle of life and death, turned a corner to meet the little girl who came to take him. Miao Do came, furrowing her brows and asking why it had to be her to play the role of the Meng Po. I told her it was because she was cute. And I was telling the truth.